Hi, Pretentals. So welcome to our fourth webinar in the series. We're going to talk about the interview process and questions today. So my name's Janice, and I am the District 10 Membership Chair, and we're really honored to have students from UNLV, Washington, and Roseman join us tonight. So let me introduce tonight's panelists. So first we have Caitlin from Washington. She's the chapter vendor chair, and then we have Christine, and Christine's gonna, join us soon. And Christine's from Washington, and she's the District 10 Community Outreach Chair and also the Advocacy Co-Chair at her chapter. And then we have Dinesh, and he's the Pre-Dental Chair. We have Louisa, and she's also the Pre-Dental Chair from UNLV. And then we have Rochelle. She's the incoming D1. She's going to join ASDA. And then we have Timothy from Washington. He's a Pre-Dental Committee member. So I'm going to have each of our panelists go around and talk about where they went to undergrad, what they majored in, and something, a fun fact about them.
I'm Katie. I went to school in Providence College in Rhode Island, and I majored in biology, and my fun fact is that I'm from Alaska.
Hi, my name is Dennis Avendano. I went to UCR, University of Riverside. And a fun fact about me is I'm a terrible swimmer, and really I actually don't know how to swim.
Hi, I'm Louisa. I'm also at UNLV. I attended UNLV as an undergrad, majored in biology with a minor in Spanish and a minor in business administration. And a fun fact is I am currently teaching violin as kind of a stress release and a fun thing outside of dental school.
Hi everyone, my name is Rochelle Castro. I did my undergrad in biochemistry and biophysics at Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon. My fun fact is that I did research in undergrad studying the fuzzy mold on strawberries if you leave them in your fridge for too long.
Hi, I'm Tim. I went to Seattle Pacific University for my undergrad, where I majored in physiology. And a fun fact about me is that I enjoy reading for fun. I'm kind of a nerd.
Janice, I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, that's really good. So we're gonna start with some questions. Lisa, let's talk about pre-dental ASDA and how do pre-dentals benefit from having membership with ASDA?
Yeah, so the same way that pre-dental societies and kind of pre-health organizations and undergraduate universities are kind of that support network for pre-dents, ASDA is that next step once you get into dental school. So ASDA is kind of our safety net. We have a lot of social events, we have mentorship programs, and a whole variety of things that benefit us as dental students. So the benefit of being part of this group as a pre-dent is, first of all, you get to hear us talk, which is exciting. And also, you just get to kind of hear from us and then talk about that in your interview, right? So in your interview, they're gonna ask you, what have you done to prepare and why dentistry and all of these different things? And you can say, hey, I've been part of ASDA, and they will all know what that is. They will most likely have a chapter of their own. And it's just a really great conversation starter with anyone that you're interviewing with.
Yep, I completely agree. And then Rochelle, we're gonna start talking about what are schools looking for during an interview?
Yeah, so basically what schools are looking for, they basically want to know if your personality matches with your application. So you already did all the classes you need, you're smart enough, you already have all the experiences, and you just need to go in there and show that you are a nice, genuine person. And this is evaluated in many ways. Like outside the actual interview, they watch you interact with students, and they can tell if you're actually happy being there. So that's one way they can see if you really want to be at that school. During the actual interview, you want to let the interviewers know how much you are interested in their program, whether it be a specific feature you like about their school or something about their mission statement that you really like. And just in general, just be very confident in yourself and show, once again, that you are a nice, genuine person.
Okay, and then Christine, what are some red flags that interviewees should know about during their interview?
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would say that the first red flag is not to lie on your application, because a lot of the interviews, some of them are closed book, right? So they don't know anything about you and you can make it up as you go, but a lot of them do know stuff about you and they read your application in great detail. So if you lie or exaggerate, you're gonna have to back it up and either sustain your lie the whole time or get caught, right? So just be totally honest on your application and be prepared to back up everything you say, because they will continue to ask follow-up questions for literally everything. Some other red flags, they just have proper etiquette. Honestly, I was shocked at how many people, first of all, I applied to way too many dental schools. But anyway, I was shocked at how many people just had terrible, like didn't shake hands, didn't say thank you. So this is a follow-up, like always send a thank you note, an email or a card or anything that you can do to show your gratitude. You know, thank you for taking your time. Thank you for considering me. I enjoyed our conversation. So I mean, be polite. It sounds simple, but a lot of people are not. And don't act like you know better than the interviewer. A lot of people, they'll say like, why do you want to be a dentist? And people will already take it way too far. Like, oh, I have so much dental experience and I know how to do everything. You don't. So just be honest about that and be open-minded and say that you're excited about the opportunity. So, I mean, truly, the red flags are very, very simple. Just don't be stuck up. Don't lie on your application. And that's it.
And I think it's really important. I've always been told during, prior to my interviews, is that regardless of whether you're interviewing for your job, for dental school, or, residency in the future, the interview really starts when you pick up the phone and you call them, or when you walk through the door. There has been, I don't know if it's true, but there have been schools where they observe how you talk to a janitor. They observe how you talk to the security guard or whoever it is. And there have been applicants where they don't get in because they're simply rude to people who they think don't matter in the interview process. So,
absolutely.
So I feel like, the moment that you pick up the phone and you talk to the person, you talk about the program, you walk through the doors, say hi, smile, and just be nice, like be genuine about, you wanting to be there.
I did over here at one of my interviews, they were, they were literally taking notes on every single thing. Like they made a note on what you were wearing the second you walked in the door. They made note of how you introduced yourself and what you said and how much you engaged with the other students and literally every single thing. So you just have to be professional all the time. If you're there and you're talking to other students and you're telling them how your dream school is some other school, but you're just sort of settling for this and you're seeing where it goes, like don't say that out loud when you're at a different school, because people absolutely notice. Excuse me. And they do take note. I mean, they take note of your attire, they take note of obviously your interview skills and how much you're engaged with other students. So it can be hard, right, if you're a little bit more shy and you don't really want to talk to all the other students all the time, because it can be hard, but do your very best because they absolutely notice those sorts of things. If you're, keeping to yourself and you don't want to share a lot of things and you're just kind of rude or awkward and things, like they will notice 100%. So just do your very best. So I am introverted. So for all you out there who are like, hey, I'm super shy, I don't want to talk to all the students all the time, I know that it's really, really hard, but you just have to put your maximum effort and engage with everybody and be super, super polite, and then you'll be okay.
And then there's different types of interview styles. I think one of them is, the most common one is like MMI. Tim, would you like to tell us more about MMI?
Yeah, so for those who don't know, MMI stands for multiple mini interviews, and some schools like UW, for instance, use the multiple mini interview format. So basically, the best way I could describe it is it's like speed dating with interviews. You have 10 different stations, 10 different interviewers at each station, and each station has a different prompt or question. And these stations vary from ethical dilemma scenarios where they'll ask you, what would you do in this situation, to problem-solving stations you'll do with another applicant, or a debate station where you'll have a conversation with another applicant about a given topic. And what I really like about the MMI is, unlike the traditional interview format, you don't have to talk about yourself, which I really like. I don't like talking about myself. So basically, like, the schools, they already use it, they know about you already. They know about you through your application, your personal statement. They already know about you, so they want to see how do you talk to people, what is your thinking process like, how do you interact with people. So the main thing here is not what you say, it's like how you say and how you express it, how you think. And like for the conversation stations, they don't care about how smart you are on the given topic or how much you know. They care about how you engage with those who don't agree with you, who have a different perspective than you do, and you can engage respectfully. So that's what they're looking for.
So what are some tips to reply to MMI prompts, Tim?
So the first thing I want to say is, when you go into the room and you introduce yourself to the interviewer and you start stating the prompt, don't re-summarize the prompt because it just takes up more time. They want to hear your answer, so make sure you get to your answer promptly and succinctly, and make sure that your stance on the prompt is clear. If you have any questions about the prompt, make sure you ask them ahead of time, because if you go into your answer and you show that you are unsure, that you don't fully understand, it can look embarrassing on your end, so be mindful of that. When you're responding to the question, don't get into all your points immediately. Just pick like 2 or 3 that you really like and share those first, and let the interviewer ask you to elaborate. Don't elaborate immediately, or then it doesn't become a conversation. You want this to be a conversation, so let your interviewer ask you the follow-up questions to elaborate on certain points, and think things through when you get a follow-up question, and they just want to see how you think in response to it. Also, another thing is, for the MMIs, you have 8 or 9 stations usually. So if you mess up on one station, don't freak out about it, because you have other stations to make up ground on, and you have other interviewers who you might vibe with better. So don't freak out with one bad station. That's what I would say.
And then how can the applicant stand out during group interviews? Dennis, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so the group interview is intended to see kind of your social interactions. When you think of dentistry, it's a very team-based environment. So group interviews are kind of intended for that. They want to see your social etiquettes, your interactions with other individuals. They want to see if you're going to be a good fit for that school. You're going to be joining anywhere from 80 to 100 plus classmates. So they want to see if you're going to be friendly. In regards to trying to avoid being too competitive, just be yourself, honestly. If you have a follow-up to someone's like story, question answering, or whatever it may be sure to kind of like add to it, but don't overshadow anyone. At the end of the day, it's just socializing, very relaxing, and just be yourself, honestly.
And to add on to that, how would they sound confident, and how do they highlight their strengths without sounding, like they're conceited?
So you want to kind of engage in a conversation that sometimes they ask questions and you might be overly excited because you have a great answer. Be sure to kind of show that enthusiasm, but don't try to overshadow anyone. If they're engaging in a lot of topics that are, something in which is the strong suit for you, be sure to allow others to engage, but try to highlight, just things that may either be something of interest for yourself, or just at the end of the day, just being natural, engaging, and be aware of etiquette. If there's someone not participating, try to get them involved. That way it kind of shows that you're confident, and it also highlights your ability to work in a team-friendly environment.
Okay, how do you deal with being nervous during interview? Because that's a very common thing, especially like with MMI. If you mess up at one of them, and Tim was mentioning how, don't worry about it and everything, but when you're at the interview, you don't really think about not being nervous. So how do you handle nervousness?
So one thing that I do the day I'm there, wouldn't be right before my interview or before I walk into the room. Some things that I do include breathing exercises and meditating for a little bit, just to, I guess, clear your head, clear your mind, clear, I guess, your body. One other thing that is helpful is come up before the interview day, when you're preparing beforehand, come up with a few commonly asked questions, come up with a few FAQs, and bullet point some responses that you have in mind when given those typical questions, because that can help you prepare mentally for something you will jump to, something you will say. Pep talking yourself would be good too. The day of your interview, the morning before, give yourself some self-affirmations, because that can go a long way in helping you boost your self-confidence. And another thing that really helps when you're there is, while you're waiting for your interview, while you're waiting for all the, I guess, the admissions people, faculty to give their presentations, talk to the other interviewers there, talk to the other applicants. They may be your future classmates, they may be your future friends. So I think when you talk to people, it really helps you build your confidence, and it makes you feel like, oh, I have people here who are in a similar boat with me, who are also nervous, who also have these same goals that I do. And it can be really reassuring when you have that mindset when you interact with other people there.
And then what to wear to interviews. And there's a lot of specifications, but I feel like there are differences between what guys and girls should wear. So Lisa, I'm gonna have you tackle that one.
For sure. So let me start out with guys. I think they have a little bit of an easier job. I think the most important part is just, wear something clean and professional, a suit, a tie, maybe not a vest. I think that's a little bit over the top. Some professional shoes, and just make sure you're well groomed. I mean, I know all through this COVID, we've all grown hair and not been able to go to a hairdresser, but just make sure you can have a beard. Just make sure that it's nicely groomed, and stay with neutral colors. So I think you can venture outside of the black suit area. You can wear a blue suit, you can wear a gray suit, just maybe not go for the bright red Santa Claus suit or something that you see around Christmas time. So that would be my suggestion for males. For females, I think go with whatever's comfortable for you. If you're a person who likes to wear dresses, wear a dress or a skirt or pants, whatever you feel comfortable in. I would say as long as it is quote unquote school appropriate, you don't want to wear a dress that you could be wearing to a club. I think then it doesn't matter if it's pants or a skirt that goes to your knees, whatever you feel comfortable wearing. In terms of heels or shoes in general, just be mindful that whatever interview you go to, you will take a tour of the school. And depending on how big that campus is, that tour can take 30, 45, maybe an hour. And so just make sure that the heels that you're wearing are comfortable enough. I've seen some people who put flats in their bag. You can do that as well if you choose to, or just wear flats the whole day so you don't have to worry about that. And again, with the colors, keep it to a neutral tone. Hairstyles, don't have crazy spiky hair. Wear it down or in a ponytail. You can have your nails done, just not 5-inch neon, nails, because you'll never have those after you become a dentist anyway. So just keep it neutral, kind of what you would wear to any kind of job interview, and make sure that you're comfortable, right? If you have like a lucky charm necklace or a ring that your grandma gave you and it brings you good luck, absolutely wear that. It's not a problem at all.
I would like to add on to that. Make sure, guys, cologne, and then ladies, perfume, minimal amount, because when you're there, especially in healthcare, you don't want to have such an overwhelming smell. And what smells good to you may not smell good to someone else. And you're sitting, in a group setting with a lot of people. You're going to be in a room with faculty and students and stuff like that. So you want to leave a good impression by, with what you say and everything, but not by how you smell. So make sure, bear in mind about that. Okay, so the next.
I actually have one more thing to add, because I think it falls under this category. Kind of what to bring on your day. You can definitely bring a toothbrush, and after lunch, go brush your teeth. On my interview day, they fed us like Caesar salad with lots of garlic and like super garlicky, I don't know, pasta or something. So it's absolutely fine to bring mints, bring gum, bring whatever makes you feel comfortable. And, bring a deodorant. If you're sweaty throughout the day, just reapply it. It's not a problem at all.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Bring some snacks is what so when I interview at Roseman, it's a full day interview. And I remember I think at around 11, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really, really hungry. So make sure you bring snacks. You don't know when they plan the, the interview part versus the tour part. Sometimes they flip-flop and you don't know when they plan the lunch. So just have snacks in your bag if you need it. Okay, let's see. The next question that we have is how to be prepared for the types of questions asked. Career services may offer mock interviews and stuff like that, but we'll have Rochelle talk about this one.
Yeah, okay. So the way you can prepare for the type of questions they ask is definitely looking up the common interview questions online. There's a lot of information online. And 3 questions that I think are really important that all schools ask across the board would be, tell me about yourself, why dentistry, and why this school. So those are definitely questions you want to be able to answer. And University of Washington also has a supplemental list of questions. And going back to what Timothy was saying, he was talking about how he created bullets answering questions that highlights stuff like your main accomplishment, goals, and that's a good way to start figuring out how to start tackling these types of questions that are being asked. And so the way I approached it, I created a document and copy pasted some common questions and bullet each of my personal experience for each question. And I rehearsed out loud first. And then I also used my pre-health advisor to do mock interviews. And it doesn't matter if you aren't completely prepared when I interviewed with my pre-health advisor, and it was pretty bad the first time, but it's good to get that first exposure so that you are more confident, and the next time you do a mock interview with them, you can improve and they can see how you improve and they give you feedback. Also, practice with anyone you know. It helps to be more confident talking to other people, especially talking about yourself to other people. And that was really hard for me because I didn't really like talking about myself at first. But being a dental assistant really forced me to talk about myself more because a lot of my patients knew that I was going into dentistry. So a lot of them asked me why dentistry. So I was able to nail that answer down, fortunately. And also rehearse with your friends and family. It's kind of awkward at first because you know them, but they will really help you They will give you good feedback, and they will know if you sound weird or awkward. And yeah, just practice with anyone.
So to add on to that, definitely like I had a document as well of like common questions that are common for a job interview or dental school and stuff like that. I know Rochelle mentioned, rehearse it with, your family, friends, and faculty. Just don't sound too rehearsed. You don't want to go to an interview where you're just speaking like from memorization. Try to make it sound natural. Like really come in and have a conversation with the faculty, with the students, and really mention like things that are, you can kind of like drive the interview in, your direction and be like, okay, this is what I want to talk about. Because then the interview, like the people interviewing you will be like, oh, well, hey, you just mentioned this. Tell me more about that. So you're kind of like giving them, leading them towards the topics that you want to talk about. And then what are some questions I can have prepared for my to ask my interviewer should they ask me for questions? Caitlin, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think it's really important for this to be personalized. It's actually what do you want to know, right? Because the school is selling itself to you just as much as you're selling yourself to the school. So like make sure, I'm really interested in business. That's part of the reason I chose dentistry. And so that's what I asked about. I was like, does your school prepare your students to own a dental practice? And a lot of schools don't. And so questions like that, or it's really important for you to have patient time, like you want to get with the patients the first year or whatever it is, ask about that. I think that it has to be personalized, and I don't think that there's like, I should ask these questions. And also it's really hard to learn about schools online. I did so much Googling and the schools are so small, there's not a lot online. So make sure when you're walking around campus and looking in buildings and learning about things that you kind of like take a mental note, or even I brought one of those like fancy notepad things, and I took notes while I was, not like extensively, but a few little notes here and there about what I saw and questions I had. And so then when they do interview, you can say, I noticed like UW's lab looks like a dungeon. Like, are you planning on changing that? So just things like that, personalized and personal to the school too.
And then if students are part of the interview process, what type of questions should I ask them? Lisa.
Yeah, so let me actually back up a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about how UNLV does it, because we do have student interviews. So at UNLV, you'll spend your lunch hour kind of just casually conversing with the first and second years. Depending on when you have your interview, they might just be brand new, or they'll already have been in the first year for a while. So during lunch, you get to ask them in a very casual setting all the questions that you have, and that can be even personal questions like how far away do you live from the school, what's your outside of school life look like, and things like that. And so then at UNLV, after the lunch is done, you will be split up into different groups, and then you will have one interview with the faculty or staff, and then one interview with the student. And that can be, the order can flip-flop. And so my student interview was a fourth year. And so we walked into a quiet study room, and it was just the two of us. And so his whole approach was he wanted me to ask him questions. So the whole interview was 20 minutes, and the entire time he asked, what questions do you have for me? What questions do you have for me? And this came after an entire hour of already asking all of the actual important questions that I had to the students in the year above us. So if I had to do it again, I think what I would do ahead of the interview is I would make myself an Excel sheet. And I would do, like, along one axis, I would do all the schools that I'm interviewing at. And then on the other axis, I would do like generic questions that I want to find out about each individual school. So kind of what Caitlin was saying, sometimes there's not a lot of info online, right? So then now to answer the actual question, what kind of questions can you ask, right? So you want to find out about research, right? Maybe your school is doing a lot of research, maybe they're not. So that could be like a category of question that you can then later fill out in your Excel sheet And when you're going through and deciding what schools you want to go to, you can say, hey, research is really important to me, so I might, lean towards one school versus another. Some other types of questions, how big is your patient pool when you do get into clinic? Things like technology in the school. Is there a mandatory attendance for lectures, right? Some schools are very strict that you have to show up in person, and other schools just upload the lectures to online. Now with COVID, everything's different and we're kind of forced to be online. But that's also a really good question, especially this year, to ask your school, how do you see the future happening, right? Will sim labs be completely open again? Or will it be just a certain small number of students or no students at all at the moment? So make yourself kind of a list where you can collect all of your data, especially if you're a very competitive applicant, and then you can go through and decide, this point is more important to me than another point.
Rochelle, how was, I know you just had your interview a couple months ago. What's your input on the interview process with students?
So students are really great. They're a really great resource for sure. They will definitely talk to them throughout the entire application cycle, even before you start interviewing, just kind of get an idea of what kind of students who go there. And I contacted students on Instagram who were going to the school, and that's how I got the most information about the schools that I was applying for, because I really didn't know where I wanted to go. I was just applying to what I thought the location wise, I was just applying to West Coast School, and I wasn't really sure what kind of features I wanted. But that kind of information is kind of hard to find online, like whether they are heavy on research or clinical experiences, like Louisa was saying. So yeah, and also for me, I thought what was really helpful was the type of student who went there. I found that students who are more willing to give you information and help you out reflects the school pretty well, and kind of gives me an idea of what kind of people will help me along my journey, like when I get into school. I really didn't want to go to a program that was super competitive. I just wanted less cutthroat experience. So yeah, that's my experience.
Dennis, what happens on interview day besides the actual interview? And let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have you answer that question.
Okay, so besides the interview, I should say, you don't want to think about it as just the interview. The minute you step onto a campus, you're starting your interview. Be aware of that, whether you're in the restroom or just the parking lot. Be aware of your surroundings. As Christine mentioned, your interactions with staff or whatever, someone might be taking notes. So be aware of that. There's going to be obviously an introduction to the school, snacks potentially, a social setting in regards to interacting with students. These are your opportunities in which you're going to be able to kind of ask questions. But as I mentioned, the whole thing is an interview. Your interaction, etiquette, how you manage yourself in a social setting, whether it's sharing lunch with fellow students or faculty, the whole process, the whole day is an interview. Be aware that these are opportunities in which you're obviously going to be able to get all your answers for the school. As Caitlin mentioned, there's not a whole lot of information on schools. So take that into consideration. You never want to kind of drop etiquette while you're on campus. Just always be professional and go from there.
And then, do I have to send a thank you card or letter or an email to after the interview? And so I think it's a good idea to do that unless the school specifically tells you not to. During the year that I interviewed at Roseman, they actually told us not to send thank you letters or emails or gifts or anything like that. They actually wanted us to write an essay afterwards. And they're like, hey, tell us about your experience and why or what you enjoyed about your interview process and what you think and how does Roseman align with your goals and stuff like that. So I think they read through all the interviews, and in your essay you kind of just, you know, be honest about it. And I had a really good experience, and I wrote that in my essay. And it depends on how the school's interview is. I feel like some schools, they kind of grill you. And then some others are just really lax. And Roseman was one of those where it was like, hey, come in, sit down, let's chit chat with the students, let's chit chat with the faculty. So you just talk about that. I think Rochelle has a different experience. Rochelle didn't have to do this. But yeah, I feel like it depends on the school. If the school tells you no, then, you know, don't do it. But if it, I think it's always meaningful to them if you can, you know, send them a letter. And don't forget, it's going to be a couple of months, like in between where you get your interview and your acceptance or their response and stuff like that. So just make sure, like, in between that time, send your thank you after the interview, and then after that, you know, follow up with them. Like, don't overwhelm them with a lot of emails, but, you know, try to check in, just so that they know that you're interested. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from the audience. Okay, so this is the most commonly asked questions. How are interviews going to be conducted if we can't be on site or in person? I know COVID has kind of like affected everyone across the board. And so I think this one, ASDA, the website, let's see, they have it, the updated info from each school, and I think most schools are conducting a virtual interview right now. But check the ASDA website and make sure that each school is they're offering virtual if they're doing in person, because that may change. And I think ASDA website is constantly updated. And then also it depends on which state the school is in. I think if you're along the coastal states, it's, you know, I think it's most likely going to be a virtual interview versus if you're the Midwest or like the Western, more middle states, then I think like Roseman's okay right now. But yeah, definitely check the ASDA website. Let me find the link to it. I'll try to link you guys at the end. And then let's see. Someone asked, will there be access to this webinar later? There will be. This webinar is being recorded, so it'll be uploaded to our YouTube page. If you aren't subscribed to our YouTube page yet, go ahead and subscribe. You can just search ASDA District 10. And let's see. Yeah, so if anyone else have any questions, please direct it into the Q&A. And does anyone else, panelists, you guys have anything to add to the interview process and any common questions that are being asked?
I'll just give a little word of advice from kind of my experience. I think it's really nerve-wracking ahead of time, right? You are thinking about so many different elements. You're thinking about, oh, I'm being watched the entire day the minute I step foot on the campus. But on the other hand, it's also a really great opportunity for you to discover the school, right? Maybe if you're interviewing for many schools, that you'd find out, hey, this is not the school that I want to end up with. And I think that's okay too, right? I think it's kind of, it's a two-way street. Yes, you want to look good for the school, but also really take this time to figure out what they do, right? And if it aligns with your future and what you see yourself doing. And then just have fun, just relax. I know it's really, really hard to say that, or it's one thing to say that and it's another thing to do that. But yeah, just take your time, relax, and maybe really do some breathing exercises in the morning. It's gonna be a great day, right? It's like a pivotal moment in your dental career, and you're gonna feel great walking out of it because it's gonna change your future. So take a deep breath.
Okay, and someone asked, do we send thank you letters to each individual interviewer? Anyone have input on that?
So I did an interview at a school where they had 2 interviewers, and I sent a letter to each of them because it felt right. But at UW, we have the MMI process, which we had like 8 people whose names I didn't remember. Like you had 8 interviewers, and I don't even know like who you would send a letter to. I didn't to UW. I didn't feel like it made sense. So I think that it's also a little bit like how you felt about it. And make sure you get your interviewers cards or you ask someone at the end because like it's really hard to find out information after you leave. So make sure if you're planning on sending a letter to get this person's information.
Yeah, and
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. Yeah, because I did some interviews where the students interviewed me, and just remember the student's name. I included the student's name in my thank you emails to the professor who interviewed me, and I think that helped me stand out. If you forget the student interview's name, you can speak to the people who run the interview day, and they can tell you their first names.
I suggest like bringing a notepad or like try not to use your phone on interview day. It's very common for us to like flip out our phone and start typing stuff in there. You never know if people view that as like, oh, they're disengaged, they're texting and stuff like that. So bring a notepad, or sometimes they provide you with a notepad, but just bring something small in case. And I think every single person that you talk to that you ask questions about, whether it's student or faculty, definitely at the end of talking to them, I think you should just ask them, hey, can I get your name? And I think some dental schools, they have like a directory of faculty. I know Roseman does, and so you can like look up that faculty name, get their email, and you can specifically like email them at the end if you want to. But also, like Rochelle mentioned, like definitely reach out to the person who that interviewed you. I mean that set you up with the interview, the coordinated the interview day. So they would have information on like who interviewed you and stuff like that. So definitely reach out. And then another question, during your undergrad, what experiences shaped you most for dental school and your passion for dentistry? Anyone want to take that question?
During undergrad, I did an independent study on the evolution of human teeth. I really like evolution, so I was excited about it. And that just like I'd already known, I'd done the clinic, been like an assistant for a while in the summers and learned like the application of dentistry, like you get to see people, you get to see the business, you get to do lots of really cool things. But then studying it like academically, I thought was really exciting, and I found that exciting. But I think that your shadowing experiences are super important especially for when you like are asked, why do you want to be a dentist? Like lean heavily on your shadowing experiences.
What else is there? Oh, someone asked, what can you do now during COVID instead of shadowing? Because I think most of our pre-dentals can't shadow anymore.
I know that in that new ASDA application, the application, general application, there's a section that lets you write an essay about how COVID has affected your application. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. But there's also another section that asks you to talk about your dexterity skills. And I have a friend who actually purposely bought a ukulele so that she could learn a new instrument and write about that in that section. So this would be a good time to maybe just practice your dexterity, and if you do any arts and crafts, you can probably take a picture of it and then bring it with you to your interview.
I think like there's a lot of free clinics that are in some states as well. I know in the Bay Area, if you're from the Bay Area, there's like the Berkeley Free Clinic. In San Diego, there's also the student-run clinics as well. Try to like volunteer if you can, if they're open and stuff. And then there's a lot of, during this time, I feel like there's also a lot of like volunteer opportunities that are remote. So you can, they may not be dental related, but they will have an impact, I guess, like whatever that you do. I think there was one that a pre-dental was telling me where she volunteered with the suicide hotline. And so during that time, she talked to a lot of senior members who, you know, they have the highest risk of committing suicide. And so during that time, like during COVID, she just called them. And I think there's a lot of people, like a lot of seniors who are stuck in nursing homes right now where they can't be visited, especially in high risk areas. So definitely, like, you know, she did that. And then it was nice because during her interview, she was, you know, during the interview, she can talk about like, hey, how did that, you know, how did that teach her with patient communication? Because we're going to see a lot of like older patients as a dentist in the future, or even different kinds of people. So don't think that, hey, I have to do dental shadowing or I have to do certain things that are dental related. There's going to be a lot of volunteer opportunities that are not dental related that will help you in dentistry.
I also, can we back up a little bit? I just wanted to add something about the COVID situation. So the thing is, everybody is going to not use it as an excuse, but kind of, right? Like say, oh, I couldn't do certain things because of COVID, which is absolutely true and valid. But I mean, do your best to stand out a little bit in the situation, you know, do what you can, you know, write letter to, you know, people in like in retirement communities or veterans, or work at food banks, and anything that you can possibly do that will help your volunteering that you're interested in, that will be a huge thing. Because I wanted to say, I cut out a little bit earlier, but I wanted to say, like, it's hard sometimes to stand out in interviews because, like, what can you say? Everybody wants to be a dentist because they want to help people and they want to change the world, which is obviously fantastic, but you have to stand out. And it's like with the COVID situation, everybody's going to say, oh, well, that was a sort of a break in my application. All right, it prevented me from doing certain things. But if you can, absolutely capitalize on opportunities that you have, or start something, or get some people together to go and volunteer, or do what you can to say, hey, you know, the situation was a huge setback and a lot of people were affected by it. So I really wanted to intervene wherever I could and be able to talk about your personal experiences.
Let's see. What advice do you have in forming a humble response to a tell me about yourself question?
I can take that one. I think a big part of it just has to do with your tone, right? If you say, you know, oh, I have the most volunteer hours and I'm the best at this and that, that comes off in a specific tone. So if you're enthusiastic about yourself and if you're happy and kind of proud about what you did, that will come across very differently than somebody who thinks very highly of themselves. Right. And the other thing that I did, because I saw this, I don't remember where I saw it, but I actually made like a little scrapbook about things that I had done, because it gave me the opportunity to start a conversation that maybe the interviewer wouldn't have asked because they didn't know me well enough. I went to a foreign country and did dental work there. They wouldn't have known that unless they read through my personal statement, and maybe they didn't. So I had kind of the opportunity to talk about things that pertain to me while showing photos that didn't exactly make me sound snobby or like I knew everything. So that's an idea. You don't have to do like a full-on scrapbook. You can just print out some photos of cool things that you've done and put them in a binder or something. It doesn't have to be crazy artistic. That's just one idea.
And then there's a question about, do I need to work as a dental assistant or in a dental office to stand out amongst the applicants? Caitlin, I know you had some input on that.
So you don't. I think you definitely, I don't know about with the COVID with the shadowing, but we used to have like 300 hours of shadowing was suggested, which I think just really just helped with the application, like saying like, this is why I want to be a dentist. But if not, you definitely don't have to be a dental assistant. Like a lot of people are coming out of undergrad. Like when would you have had time to be a full-time dental assistant? That's like unrealistic. But some people are a little older in my class, they're in their like 20s and they assisted for 4 to 5 years. And that's why they chose dentistry, is because of that experience. So I think everyone has their own experience coming into it, and just, like kind of have an angle and this is who I am and this is why I want to be a dentist, and go with that.
And I think a lot of schools where they kind of have the, hey, you need to shadow this whole 300 hours, is I think they want to make sure that the person who's applying to the program really wants to do dentistry. Because I think there are some, they don't want you to walk into dentistry, invest yourself into like a couple $100,000 and be like, oh man, dentistry is not for me. Like I think I've heard from other schools where there was a person where they went to oral surgery and they completely fainted. So, I mean, that's something that you want to know ahead of time. Like, can you handle blood? Because there are some people who are like, well, I don't know what I want to major in, and dentistry sounds good. And that happens a lot when, you know, you're in college and you're studying, but you're not really exposed to dentistry. I think it helps for you to shadow and have a good idea during those hours to know. But know if you're into dentistry and if you can handle the rigors of dentistry and you know, the gore, I guess. But just, I think you don't need to necessarily stand out by saying, hey, I was a dental assistant or I worked at a dental office. I think just showing that you're comfortable with the field and you know what you're going into is sufficient. And then someone asked, if we have experiences during the summer, will we be able to add those to the application? Does anyone know?
I think it depends on the institution that you are applying to, because I know that with one of the schools I remember applying to, they sent me a supplemental question like during the summer, and it asked me, like one of the questions was, do you want to add anything here that you were not able to add to your primary application? So I just added whatever I could there. But I think that is a school by school basis. So make sure you just put in everything that you think is the most important on your primary application, because once you submit, you can't add anything later. So if you can add stuff later, count it as a blessing.
Yeah. And I think you can email the school updates as well, especially with grades. If you're in school, you can update them. Some people don't take a gap year and they're taking classes or per se. Then you can add that in, or it saves you something to talk about during the interview as well.
I have something to add real quick. In the most recent cycle, the primary application actually gave us 2 opportunities to update our application. So I was able to add more experiences that I gained over the course of that time.
And then someone asked.
Yeah, and I think that time is in September and then again at the end of the year. So I want to say it was like late December, early January, where you had the opportunity to edit.
And then someone asked, is there a separate interview for the RIDE program at University of Washington? Do you guys know?
There's not. There was like a luncheon thing for everyone who was interested, and I don't know if they change it every year, but what they told us when we applied was you're applying to the school, and if you want to be in RIDE, then you get into UW and then you get into RIDE after. And there was a luncheon, and then I think there was like a day that they invited everyone to come to Spokane and RIDE. I didn't go, but I think there was like an invitation thing if you want to go, I think.
And then Timothy, I think you might have the answer to this question. Can we write notes in the MMI after we get the question?
Okay, so with the MMI, so before in beginning of interview day, when you come in, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement form saying that you will, once you get these questions, you will not disclose them afterwards. So you have to sign a form saying that. So nope, you're technically not supposed to write down anything, say anything afterwards.
And then in your own interview experience, were there any unexpected or odd questions that surprised you? Would you have any tips for not sounding thrown while answering? One of the interview questions that I had, Roseman, was, what was your favorite book? And so I was like, you know, thank goodness I read, but I don't know how that would have been if, you know, there are people who don't read and they're like, I don't know, I don't have a favorite book, but I have a favorite comic book, you know, something like that, right? So yeah, there are weird questions like that. Have you guys encountered any odd questions?
I just remember the professor saw that I was from Germany, and then he's very into cars. So we spent about 20 minutes talking about German cars. And I mean, yes, I'm German, but I don't know the ins and outs of German cars. So that will happen where you will go into an interview being super prepared. You know the answer to all of your why dentistry, why this, why that. And they won't even ask you a single one of those questions, and they'll just talk about German cars. Right, so you have to go into this interview 100% like open to whatever comes your way, because you know you might talk about dogs, you might, you know, you don't know, they don't even know, it'll just be on the spot.
There has
I think-
definitely been
Oh,
yeah, there's
I'm sorry.
definitely been like I heard from a classmate where he just ended up asking like that there was that question someone asked like, oh, what should I ask my faculty when they say, hey, you know, do you have any questions? I think that's also a time to give them a weird question as well. One of the questions that my classmate asked was, where's the best food in Salt Lake City? And so it's okay for you to throw a curveball back as well, just to, you know, be normal human being, right? But the best advice that I have is, you know, kind of just be calm and be yourself. Like they know you're nervous, right? But answer the question. Like if you don't have an answer to the question, be like, you know, I really don't know, but this is my perspective on it or whatever. So be calm. Rochelle, did you have anything to add to that?
oh yeah, I was just gonna say like one odd question I got was what part of a salad would you be? So that was kind of weird. But I would say that you won't get as much oddball questions as you would with like regular interview questions.
And
I
then,
had a question. An interviewer asked me like what I thought was the biggest challenge facing dentistry right now, and I was like, oh no. But I had listened to like a lot of podcasts. I was dental podcasts. They're kind of fun actually. And so I just heard the dentist complaining about like stuff going on. So that was a curveball I was thrown. So I would be prepared for that.
and then someone asked, are there differences between resident, non-resident, and military applicants? I don't think there is.
For state schools, they have very strict rules and like almost quotas to fill. So I know for UNLV, you have a much higher chance of getting in if you're a resident of that state, or if you even have ties to Nevada or Las Vegas, they want you, because I think it's like 60 or 65% that has to be in state. You're always going to have a higher chance of getting into your state school than out of state. For military, I'm not sure. I don't know if they have any requirements.
I don't think military has, but I know, like, for example, I think Texas schools, they specifically, like, they tell you, hey, we only take like 5% or 10% out of state. Louisiana, same thing. Alabama, same thing. So you kind of like want to read their website and see. So I think there's no more questions. I hope all of the applicants are having a blast with the application cycle. I wish you all luck with the interview process. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to put in the chat right here in the bottom. If you guys want to take a look at that, there's an email, the ASDA district10@gmail.com. I will be answering questions on there if you guys send me an email, if you guys like think about a question that you guys didn't have right now. And if I don't have an answer to it, I'll ask, you know, District 10 members to help me out with that. Okay, so feel free, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will be uploaded later. And then, yeah, don't forget to sign up for, tell your friends who are still applying to apply for the ASDA membership, the pre-dental membership. It's very beneficial. So stay tuned. We're gonna have a couple more pre-dental webinars. Thank you guys. Have a good night.